When Camron jumped on his live stream last night, fans expected the usual jokes, rap stories, and a little friendly shade. What they didn't expect was a bombshell about one of the most powerful names in hip-hop history. With that trademark smirk, Cam leaned toward the camera and said, "Y'all ever wonder why HAV still don't own an NBA team? It's deeper than money, bro. Way deeper." The chat froze. Within seconds, thousands of people flooded the comments, demanding answers. And Cam didn't hold back. He claimed there's a reason behind Jay-Z's decades-long struggle to step fully into professional sports ownership. A web of politics, power, and industry manipulation that money alone can't fix. "This game rigged at the top," Cam said. "It ain't about who got billions. It's about who they let in the room." Fans immediately began dissecting every word, connecting dots between DAS ROC Nation sports empire, his brief stake in the Brooklyn Nets, and the quiet resistance from corporate gatekeepers who control professional franchises. Some called it jealousy, others said Cam was speaking uncomfortable truth. Either way, the internet lit up overnight. "Camron knows something," one fan tweeted. "This feels personal." Whether it was old beef, insider knowledge, or just bold honesty, Cam's claims had cracked open a conversation nobody saw coming, one that reached far beyond hip-hop and straight into the hidden power structures of American sports. The live started like any other night for Camron, him sitting in front of his laptop, cracking jokes, sipping on a drink, and trading stories with fans about the golden era of hip-hop. He was in his element, laughing about studio sessions with Dipset, throwing playful jabs at old rivals. When someone in the comments asked, "Yo, Cam, what's up with Jay-Z in the NBA? Why he never got his own team?" Cam paused mid-laugh, his expression shifting. "You really want to know?" he said, leaning closer to the screen. The chat blew up instantly. "Of course we do. Spill it. We need that tea." Cam smiled, that slow, knowing grin that always meant he was about to say something that would shake the room. "See, the thing about this business," he started, "is it's all about access. And people think just because Hav got billions and got ties in every city, that he can just walk into the NBA and buy a team. Nah, that's not how it works." He paused for effect. "It's deeper than money. It's who runs the table and who they let sit at it." The comments flooded faster than the screen could keep up. Cam took another sip, his voice steady now. "I'ma tell y'all something that a lot of people don't want to say out loud. I've been trying to get full ownership of a team since the Brooklyn Nets deal. You remember that, right? Everybody thought he owned the team. They was calling him the first black NBA owner. But that was never true. That was PR. He had less than 1% of that team. Less than 1%. You can't even call that ownership. That's symbolism." He leaned back, shaking his head. They let him have just enough to look powerful. Just enough to make people think the door was open. But that door? It's locked tighter than Fort Knox. The league wanted Jay's face, his brand, his influence, his ability to sell Brooklyn as the new capital of basketball. They wanted his culture. But when it came to the boardroom, when it came to decisions that mattered, he wasn't in there. "Not really," Cam paused, scrolling through the chat. "Now, here's where it gets deep," he said, lowering his voice slightly. "After that Nets deal, Hav wanted in for real. Not no face card stuff. He wanted to buy into another team, majority stake, ownership, control. And he had the money to do it. But they didn't want him there. You know why? 'Cause Hav don't play puppet. He don't smile for people he don't respect. And the NBA, man." Cam let the sentence hang. "That world is more political than the White House." He leaned forward again. "It's not just about being rich. It's about networks, old families, old corporations, legacy money that's been sitting in those chairs for generations. Most of these owners, they inherited their way into those rooms. You can't buy that kind of access, not with music money. Not even with billionaire status if you ain't from the right billionaire circle." Someone in the comments typed, "So, you saying they won't let a black man own a team?" Cam read it out loud and nodded slowly. I'm saying they don't mind pretending they will. They'll partner with you. They'll smile for photo ops. They'll talk about diversity. But when it's time to give up control, that's where it stops. They let us in the front row, not the boardroom. The chat went crazy. Messages flying, he's spitting facts. It's all a system. Cam, exposing too much. Cam chuckled. I ain't exposing nothing that ain't already out there if you paying attention. Look at how they move. Every time somebody black with power tries to step in, it becomes a complicated process. Look at what happened with Diddy and the Panthers. Same playbook. He leaned back again, his tone calm but cutting. They scared of influence? They don't want people like Hav owning teams because he don't need their approval. He'd build his own infrastructure. He'd open doors for people they've been keeping out for decades, and that's the threat. It ain't about basketball, it's about control. For a few seconds, he just stared into the camera. The silence was heavier than anything he'd said so far. Y'all ever notice how Hav moved now? He said finally. He don't talk about owning a team no more. He talk about partnerships, about working with organizations. That's what happens when you realize the ceiling ain't made of glass, it's made of gatekeepers. The comments turned into chaos. You think they blackballed him? One viewer asked. Cam's response was immediate. Not blackballed. They boxed him in. There's a difference. Blackballing is when they throw you out the system. Boxing in is when they let you play, but only inside their rules. Cam's tone shifted again, darker now. Y'all don't know the conversations that go on behind closed doors? Jay tried to get meetings. He tried to buy into franchises more than once, not just basketball, football too. But every time they hit him with the same thing, we'll get back to you. Then nothing. The people who own these teams, they ain't just business owners. They're families that control entire industries. Real old money, oil money, banking money, political donors. You think they about to let a rapper turned billionaire walk in and call shots? Nah, not unless he plays by their rules. Someone commented, but Hav's friends with billionaires though. Cam laughed. Yeah, but being friends with billionaires and being one of their kind ain't the same thing. They let him in the room, but they don't hand him the keys. Then Cam said the line that would end up all over the internet the next morning. Jay-Z can buy a team, they just won't sell it to him. That's the difference between money and power. He got the first one. They got the second. The chat went wild. Thousands of people were screen recording, clipping, reposting in real time. Cam knew exactly what he was doing. Every word, every pause, calculated but real. Look, he said, leaning forward again, this ain't me hating. I respect Hav. Always have. But what I'm saying is people need to understand the game they're playing. They call it ownership, but it's really permission. Camron didn't post anything for almost 12 hours after the live ended. No tweets, no follow-ups. But when he finally spoke again, it wasn't to backpedal, it was to double down. On his Instagram, he posted a picture of himself wearing a pink fur coat from his Dipset days, with the caption, "They can't cancel real. I said what I said." The post racked up hundreds of thousands of likes in hours. Comments poured in from fans and celebrities alike. Some clapped for him. Others warned him. "They gonna come for you, Cam," one comment read. Cam replied with 3 words. "Let them try." Meanwhile, inside ROC Nation, the tension was thick. According to insiders, Jay-Z's team was not happy. They'd been trying for months to keep conversations about ownership deals quiet. Jay had reportedly been exploring partial ownership opportunities with multiple franchises, including one on the West Coast, but none had moved forward. Cam's comments had not only reignited public curiosity, they had also complicated delicate negotiations already in progress. That man just threw gasoline on something Jay been trying to handle privately, a source told a sports reporter. And trust me, Hav, don't forget stuff like that. By noon, mainstream sports networks were weighing in. One host on ESPN opened the segment by saying Camron's comments might sound like gossip, but there's some truth here. The NBA is not just a league, it's a fraternity of generational wealth. Breaking into that as a new owner, especially a black one, isn't easy. He went on to list examples. Michael Jordan's sale of the Charlotte Hornets. Diddy's failed attempts to buy into NFL franchises. Byron Allen's battles for media control. Money gets you to the door, the host said. Access opens it. Cam saw that clip and reposted it on his story with the caption, "Now they get it." But not everyone agreed with him. Critics argued that Cam's narrative was unfair to Jay-Z, that it painted him as powerless, when, in fact, he was one of the most influential figures in both sports and business. A few insiders even accused Cam of jealousy, saying he was clout dash chasing off the only rapper who made it into billionaire circles. Others brought up old beef between the two, pointing out how their relationship had always been complicated, respectful in public, tense behind closed doors. Cam addressed that the following night with another live. "Ain't no jealousy, brr," he said. "I respect Hav, always have. But y'all forget I've been in them rooms too. I seen the way these deals move. They smile in your face, then hit you with paperwork that keeps you dependent on them. Jay tried to own something outright, and they told him no. That's facts." He paused, letting the silence carry his point. "You've got to understand they use us for culture, for clout, for cool. We make the league hot. We sell jerseys, we sell moments, we sell the story. But the ownership? That's still theirs. You can be the face of the brand, but not the hand that signs the checks." As Cam spoke, the live chat went insane. Fans were throwing out theories, names, even screenshots from old interviews where Jay himself had hinted at roadblocks in business. One person wrote, "Didn't Jay say in that Forbes interview they make you jump through hoops?" Cam nodded when he saw the comment. "Exactly. You got to get approved by people who never even liked you to begin with. You can't own the team if the gatekeepers don't co-sign your name. That's how deep it goes." The clip spread again like wildfire. By the next morning, the media had dubbed it the Camron Expose. Journalists started digging into public records, trying to find any evidence that Jay-Z had attempted team ownership beyond his small nets investment. Some found whispers meetings that didn't materialize. Anonymous sources saying Jay had been discouraged from pursuing larger stakes. The deeper they looked, the murkier the story became. On Twitter, fans began connecting the dots themselves. Cam wasn't lying, one thread read. "You ever notice how every time Jay-Z gets too close to full control of something, the narrative changes? Title, ROC Nation Sports, NFL deals, they let him in, but never all the way." The post went viral, gathering hundreds of thousands of retweets. Behind the scenes, Jay's circle worked overtime to contain the noise. Publicists were fielding questions from journalists. Advisors were debating whether to release an official statement. But Jay himself stayed silent, the kind of silence that said more than words ever could. To those who knew him, that silence was strategic. He was watching, waiting, and calculating. Meanwhile, Cam kept fanning the flames. In one of his interviews later that week, he told a hip-hop radio host, "Listen, I ain't trying to tear another black man down. I'm trying to tear down the walls around him. If they can tell Jay-Z no, what chance do the rest of us got?" That one quote shifted the tone again. What had started as a controversial rant had now turned into a rallying cry for independence and power in the black business community. YouTubers, podcasters, and think piece writers all jumped in. Some framed Cam as a whistleblower, exposing how celebrity success doesn't equal systemic power. Others dismissed him as a provocateur stirring controversy for attention. But one thing was certain: he had forced the conversation into the mainstream. Even sports insiders began to acknowledge it. A former NBA executive told a journalist anonymously, "He's not wrong. The ownership group approvals are selective. There's politics behind every sale. It's not just about who can afford it, it's about who fits the culture of the owner's circle." As the week went on, something unexpected happened. Fans began demanding transparency from the NBA itself. On social media, hashtags like #LetUsOwn and #PowerNotPermission started trending. People weren't just talking about Jay-Z anymore. They were questioning why after all these years. No major black figure outside of Michael Jordan had ever had real control of a team. Cam had tapped into something much bigger than himself. By Friday, a clip surfaced of Cam walking through New York City, fans yelling, "You started something, Keela," as he laughed and waved them off. "I ain't start nothing," he said to one reporter who caught up to him. "I just said the truth. The system been there. I just reminded y'all to look at it." That night, sitting in his apartment, Cam watched the chaos he'd created unfold across the news. The headlines, the discussions, the debates, all from one conversation that started on a random live stream. He didn't regret it. Not one bit. "Sometimes," he said to himself quietly, scrolling through his mentions, "you've got to shake the table just to see who built it." And with that, he logged off again, knowing the story wasn't over. And that Jay-Z's silence was only making it louder. By the weekend, Camron's words had evolved from online drama into a cultural moment. Every major outlet from hip-hop blogs to CNBC had weighed in on what was now being called the ownership question. It wasn't just about Jay-Z anymore. It was about the invisible power lines that divided money from control, success from permission, and fame from true influence. The phrase, "They let us in the room, but they don't hand us the keys," had become a slogan, appearing on memes, t-shirts, and even protest signs outside sports arenas. Meanwhile, Jay's private sit-down finally happened that afternoon in a luxury suite overlooking Manhattan. A handful of journalists, all under strict confidentiality, gathered around as Jay-Z calmly addressed the swirling rumors. He didn't deny that ownership in professional sports was exclusive and political, but he also didn't confirm that he had been blocked. Instead, he reframed the narrative entirely. "People think ownership is just about buying something," he said smoothly. "It's not. It's about structure. You can't walk into a house that wasn't built for you and expect to move freely. You have to build your own foundation." One journalist asked directly about Camron's comments. Jay smirked, eyes steady. "Cam's entitled to his opinion," he said. "I respect anyone speaking their truth. But some things don't need to be said on live. They need to be said in rooms that make change." His tone was calm but sharp. The kind of statement that sounded diplomatic but carried weight between the lines. That quote leaked almost immediately. Within hours, blogs plastered it everywhere. Jay-Z responds to Camron, "Some things don't need to be said on live." Social media lit up again. Some thought Jay's words were classy, a subtle dismissal that kept his brand untarnished. Others said it proved Cam's point that the power elite always preferred silence to accountability. "Cam shook the system," one user tweeted. "Jay just reminded us he's part of it." Cam saw the headline that evening and laughed. He went live again, his tone half joking but undeniably sharp. "So now it's some things don't need to be said on live." "Nah, Hav. Some things been needed to be said. Y'all just been too quiet to say it." The chat exploded, his fans cheering as he continued. "Look, I ain't mad at the man. I respect what he's built. But I'm not going to pretend the doors are open when they're not. We can't keep playing humble while they move the goalposts every time we get close." He leaned closer to the camera. "I don't care if you got 1 billion or 10 billion. The same people still own the table. You can't change that from a seat they give you. You gotta build your own damn table." That line hit instantly. Within minutes, clips of it were everywhere. The phrase "build your own table" became the next viral wave, trending alongside #PowerNotPermission. By Sunday, talk shows were debating who was right, Cam, who claimed the system was designed to keep certain people out, or Jay, who believed in changing it from within. Even business analysts joined the discussion, pointing out how the NBA's ownership structure favored legacy families and billionaires from specific industries. "It's not about race alone," one analyst explained on live TV. "It's about who's allowed to convert wealth into control." And Camron just gave the world a front row seat to that conversation. Behind the scenes, though, the situation had become more personal. People close to Jay said he wasn't angry at Cam's comments. He was disappointed. To him, it wasn't just gossip. It was a breach of unspoken codes between men who knew how the industry worked. Jay operates by quiet power, one associate explained. Cam's from the school of loud truth. That's the difference. They both write in their own ways, they just speak to different languages. Still, the tension was undeniable. Rumors swirled that Cam had been blacklisted from certain entertainment deals in the days following his viral comments. Sponsors who had been courting him for endorsements suddenly reconsidered. And an event appearance in Miami was mysteriously postponed. Cam laughed it off publicly. "Guess I hit a nerve." He joked, but privately, he knew what was happening. The machine was reminding him who controlled the levers. But what nobody expected was what came next. A week later, Jay-Z announced a partnership, not ownership, but an equity collaboration with a major sports organization that focused on expanding opportunities for minority investors in professional teams. It was a brilliant move, both strategic and symbolic. The press hailed it as a step forward, proof that Jay was doing the work quietly instead of airing grievances online. But for those who'd been watching closely, the timing spoke volumes. Camron, of course, noticed. He posted a cryptic story that same night, a simple chessboard emoji with the caption, "Check. Fans lost their minds." Some said it was shade. Others said it was respect, the ultimate acknowledgement between two men who understood the game too well. In truth, both men had won in their own ways. Jay's silence turned into strategy, and Cam's noise turned into awareness. Their clash had exposed a truth the public couldn't unsee, that even at the top, power has layers, and ownership isn't just about who pays. It's about who's permitted. Months later, during a podcast interview, Cam reflected on the whole ordeal. "I ain't regretting nothing," he said. "People act like I was trying to tear Jay down. Nah, I was trying to lift the veil. Everybody think money means freedom, but it don't. You can be rich and still be rented. That's the part they don't tell you." He paused for a moment, smirking like he always did before dropping the final gem. "The difference between me and most of them is I don't need the room to clap for me to tell the truth." That quote, like everything else he'd said, caught fire again. It was clear now that Camron hadn't just started a feud, he'd sparked a movement. A new generation of artists, athletes, and entrepreneurs began echoing his message, building collectives and pooling resources to chase ownership outside the traditional systems. In the end, Cam's livestream became something bigger than either of them, a moment in pop culture that peeled back the curtain on what real power looks like in America. Jay-Z kept building quietly. Cam kept talking loudly, and somewhere between them, the truth lived deep, complicated, and undeniable. If Cam's words made you think twice about what real power looks like,